Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be doing a portfolio overview of my portfolio on the Stash app. A couple of months ago I did a portfolio overview when I had invested $1,000 and now I've invested about $2,000. When I did this video the first time, I was actually up about 2%, and now on this $2,000 portfolio, I'm actually just about breaking even. And the reason that is all of the trade war talk with Trump and China, and other countries as well with Mexico, and the whole stock market dropped about 7%, and the tech industry was actually even hit a lot higher than that. A lot of tech stocks dropped by 20% with all of the talk in the trade war. And as you will see throughout this video, I am heavily invested in the tech industry. So my portfolio went from about plus 2%, and at its lowest it was at about negative 7%, and now I'm just up to about breaking even. In the next few months, as long as we do not begin to enter an economic recession, I do definitely expect my portfolio to do extremely well, especially with all of these stocks I've chosen. And I also should mention that this portfolio is just strictly for long-term investing. I am not day trading at all using Stash. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Two of my most successful investments have been Microsoft at about an 11% gain, and I'm pretty sure you've got to be familiar with their business model and what they do. And then we have Take-Two Interactive, which is a video game company. They develop games such as Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, which do extremely well, seeing about an 11% gain there with Microsoft and about a 19% gain there with Take-Two Interactive. I really wish I had invested more, and I definitely plan to once that dips down just a little bit. Next up, I have Match the Market, which is an ETF that kind of emulates the S&P 500. And then at the bottom there is Slow and Steady, which is an ETF that is mostly in safe stocks and dividend-yielding stocks that is not going to see a lot of volatility. And then there's Amazon, which has had an extremely successful first half of the year. I was up about 12% in Amazon at one point, but in the last month they have come into a little bit of trouble, and now I'm just at about plus 4% on this stock. Next up, we have Berkshire Hathaway, which is up around 6%. It is an ETF run by Warren Buffett that is extremely successful and geared towards long-term investing, so it definitely fits in with the other stocks on this portfolio. And then there's Activision Blizzard, which is a video game company. They're releasing a Call of Duty game later this year that I'm expecting to do extremely well, so I wanted to start investing in that early. And then lastly, just with $25 invested and up 16% is Advanced Micro Devices, which is a microchip company, and I'm actually starting to plan to invest a lot more using Robinhood in this company. They're just relatively close to their 52-week high right now, so I have to wait it out for a little bit. Next up is an ETF called Young Money, and this ETF is geared towards companies, and especially tech companies that are expected to do extremely well and grow with the upcoming millennial generation. And then there's Apple, which is a really good investment. They're pretty high right now, so I'm not going to be adding too many shares, but once that stock price drops, I would love to be investing in Apple for the long term. Next up is Visa and MasterCard. I think these are extremely strong growth companies, and I've already started to invest in MasterCard on Robinhood, and I'm probably going to start investing in both Visa and MasterCard more on Stash. These are both just really good growth, low volatility investments, and I've actually done videos on both Visa and MasterCard if you'd want to go check those out and compare the investments. Next up is an ETF called Delicious Dividends, which is an ETF geared towards earning a high dividend yield, but I would actually argue that you can invest in a lot of different dividend companies and get a lot better of a dividend yield than investing in this ETF, because I believe it only gives about a 4% dividend. And then there's Netflix. I only invested $25 in Netflix. I think Netflix has a lot of international growth opportunity, but here in the United States, they are starting to get a lot of competition with Apple and Disney starting to move into their space. And then there's Walmart and a bunch of other investments down below it where there's less than $1 invested in it, and I did not invest those tiny amounts of money in the companies. I actually got those using StockBack with the debit card, and I've done a few videos with StockBack if you want to go check those out. Next up is Boeing, which has come under a lot of scrutiny in the last few months, and I'm probably not really expecting Boeing to go positive for many months, especially with their earnings coming out this week, and I'm not expecting them to do too well. Then there's Alibaba, which I also want to start investing in on Robinhood, I actually just added a couple of shares this week, I believe, and that is a Chinese company that can kind of be compared to Amazon, but they also have some e-commerce. There's just a lot going on there with that company. Alibaba was also hit extremely hard with all of the negative Chinese trade talks, as well as Nvidia, which is probably the biggest market cap microchip company, but I think for the long term, both of these are an extremely strong investment. And then we also have Salesforce, which they do a whole lot in the United States as well as a little bit international, but they do a lot of analytics for companies and customer relations. And then the last two stocks that I'm actually seeing the least return on right now are my two best investments, in my opinion, and those are Google and Tesla. Google is seeing just so much global growth in emerging economies, and they're seeing individual user increase in revenue. So I think Google is just going to be such a strong investment, and the market cap for Google is just going to keep going up and up and up. And then there's Tesla, which is much more speculative than Google. And I've actually recently done a video on Tesla if you want to come check it out. There's a lot of controversy around Tesla, but I think the electric vehicles worldwide are going to keep taking market share from the more traditional vehicles, and this is going to really be a great investment. And I do plan to keep investing in Tesla as more news about it comes out. A couple of more things I wanted to take note on is that I have received about $6 or $7 in dividends using Stash, and now in my cash balance, I have about $266 left, and the rest of the money came out in the $1 a month fee. And they also just made a change to the monthly fee. Previously, whenever you had more than $5,000 invested in Stash, they would take 0.25%, that's just 1/4% out of your overall portfolio every year. But now they've changed that to just $1 a month, as if you had less than $5,000 in your account. If you have any questions about that, please do let me know in the comments. But I was really weary of having, $10,000 or $20,000 on Stash, because then you're paying way more than the $1 a month fee, and using other investment accounts, they don't have a $1 a month fee or that 0.25% a year. But now they've taken that out, and it's just $1 a month for everyone, which I think is really great news. And then the very last thing I wanted to mention is that I do have a very diversified portfolio for it being such a small portfolio, but with being able to invest in fractional shares, I'm kind of like, I might as well, why not? And I really love looking up the different companies and looking up good investments. So if I can do it, I might as well, even though some may think of it as very silly. I have done a few other Stash related videos if you want to come check that out on my channel, or see what other kind of videos I've done that are all stock related. Comment down below if you have any questions about Stash or about my investments on this portfolio, and thank you so much for watching to the end.